Hello, so I'll try to give you all of the information that I was searching for hours and couldn't find any. So we'll begin with explaining some things about the map, the initial map and the second one. And then we'll speak about my inventory and what I should carry and what you should probably carry as well. And then we'll go into the base building aspect a little bit and finally about the skills. But not too much because it will hurt our brains. Now, initially, you'll start off in the first map, which is the Haga Basin south, but there's also another area over here. You have to go north, that's clear, right? What is the best base location? Well, in my opinion, the best base location would be somewhere near a wreck or the griffin station over there. So I guess somewhere around here would be the best base location. Now, what materials do you need from the first area of the game? I'm not going into details, but you will need a lot of fiber, you will need a lot of bushes. What are they called? Let's see. So in the first area you should collect a lot of plant fibers and a lot of cobalt ore, because the first map has a lot of cobalt while the second map has a lot of iron but less cobalt. So focus on getting just enough granite as you need to build a base, and then focus on getting a lot of cobalt and a lot of plant fiber, which you'll be moving out of the map with, just because you need a lot of it. And you will never stop needing it because you need to craft bandages. And then what you also need is from the wreck of the Alcyon, a lot of plasteel, microflora, fiber and mechanical parts. These are very useful to make armors and some other cool stuff, but as you can see, you only have one source for all of this stuff, so you can get a little bit annoyed because some materials are super rare and you just don't know it yet. While the other materials from like the caves, the micro sandwich fabric and the EMF generator are more common, but you need them much later. So get as many of these two materials as you can, get as many as you can from the wreck of the Alcyon and similar material, a lot of cobalt and a lot of fuel cells as well. You're probably going to need a lot of fuel cells as well. Salvage metal and granite will be all over the place yet again. Also try to get as much of the intel as you can from the first map, but don't worry if you don't get all of it, because you can just find it in other areas. Now, it's also super important to do the quests that are marked. What are the quests that are marked? Well, these ones. By the way, this is the icon of a pen. Yes, it's a pen. In case you don't know what a pen icon looks like, because nobody uses a pen to write these days, that's why it looks so weird and you cannot... It's not an arrow for sure. So you also need to go to the Griffin trading station, not the research station. Why is that thingy on top of it? Anyway, it doesn't matter. So you have a trading point in every map, or in every major area. So one is over here, and then the next one will be, I think, over here, the trade post. So you can use the copter or helicopter taxi service to move between these points. So if you need to buy something or if you need to go back and forth, don't worry, you can use the taxi service to go back and forth and claim some of the stuff you left behind, so don't worry. But I also have a video where I just moved with the bike everything I had. You'll mostly be living with a lot of good materials, rare materials like the ones I mentioned, and a lot of copper bars and fibers and whatever else you have. You're also going to need a lot of advanced servox and particle capacitor, so make sure you collect all of these as well. So these are kind of like the materials you need, plus a lot of intelligence. And do as many as the quests you want, but, or I mean as many as the locations as you want, but do all of the journey quests. It will be very important for some other stuff later on, as they give you a lot of money and a lot of other cool stuff. And then when you reach the second map, it's the same discussion. Where is the best place for a base? Well, I'm over here next to the trading spot, and it will be much easier to transition to the next map, which is this one over here. This is the way you're supposed to transition to the map. So you cannot go over here or over there, you'll have to go over here. So it's better for the future if you want to kind of play a little safer. So you want a base that will allow you to go to this area as well, because this area is higher tier, enemies are more dangerous, plus you have the quicksand, which is treacherous. The downside to this is that you'll not be able to make a lot of trips to the wreck of the palace, but there's a catch. The wreck of the palace is a PvP zone, so you might get killed and I think you lose everything in your backpack. You might keep all of your gear. I'm not sure, I never did PvP, so this is why it's so important to go into the first wreck of the game over here and collect a lot of those stuff, because that's PvP. Plus you'll not be able to access easily the second part of the map over here, because you'll mostly be sitting in this area for most of the game, except for when you're doing the quests. The ones that are marked with this color over here are the are the main cost ones. The Trial of AQL. Also, be very, very careful when you're reading the map, because sometimes you'll find a good base location depending on what you need. Or, for example, if I'm searching for cobalt ore, oh look, not cobalt or copper ore, there's copper ore over there, and you might find it in some other areas over here as well. So when you reach a new map, instead of just, you know, going all over the place and trying to see where everything is, climb and use the survey probe launcher, because it will reveal the entire map. So it will reveal the entire eastern one, and then you have to go to the western one as well. You do need a bit of distance to climb up, but it shouldn't be so hard to do. Also, this is drum sand that you'll need for later, which you might be able to collect some resources, some silicone. And other than that, you need, well, I'll speak up more about this at the base location. But, well, I guess I should show you right now what is a good base location qualified as. So, when you're walking all over this place, if you have shot the flare, you'll be able to see all of the resources near the base. So, I actually put my base in a bit of a good and a bad location because of some things. So what you see over here will all spawn, and they'll respawn about 20 minutes between each other. So as you can see, I have an iron ore right outside of my base. I also have a fuel cell to respawn over there. And other than that, I just have a lot of iron, as you can see, all over the place, a lot of fiber as well. So when I need resources, I just go something like this and I collect all of them. I have some copper over here as well, but mostly, oh, it's almost daytime. You'll want to collect the dew using your tool. This is a poor harvest time. The best harvest time is when the moon is like a little semicircle. You know, like in the cartoons, when the moon is full, it's bad. When the sun is out, it's bad. When the moon is just like a like a toenail. You know, when you cut off your toenails, that's how the moon should look like when is the perfect time to harvest the dew. It will also say, so that's one dew patch over there, this is another dew patch over here. The best way to get water is to use this thing over here, the collector, the sickle. Don't listen to what people tell you. This is the best place to get the water, and you need a lot of water. So you need a lot of plant fibers. I'll not collect them because I rushed it. And I think the best base location for me would have been somewhere over here. Now, why over here, you might ask? Well, it's a little bit further away from the other stuff, but it's still close enough, and I can go from here to here if I need, from there to there. But more importantly, this is a great water farm area, and let me show you why. As you see, you have a few iron nodes as well. The game is a bit treacherous like this because it doesn't show you the plants on the maps, but it shows you a little bit of them. That's a primrose field, and you might think, well, it's only a field, right? No, it's not. Actually, a little more than that. So as you can see, we have all of the iron over here. We have another field over here. Plant fibers over there, but let's count how many fields we have. 1, 2, 3, and this one is huge, as you can see. 1 medium, 1 small, and 1 huge one over here. So that's a great way to get water. If you're in your base, you just get out and collect a lot of water, you'll be fine. And then you have another field over here, so that's 4 fields. Then you have another one over there, so that's 5 fields. So that's so much water, you'll be able to process all of your materials very, very fast. So you just go on a little adventure, and when you come home during the night, you might as well collect the water. Even if it's not optimal, you should collect all of the dew water while you can. I mean, nobody's going to wait for every cycle to be perfect. And over here, as you can see, I have some cobalt ore. So yeah, it's kind of like a good base location, because I could have built it over there, would have been better, but even here is pretty nice. I also have a granite, a copper, and an iron spawn, plus the fuel cell spawn over there. So as you can see, this is massive, having access to your resources so well. These are the main factors that you need to think about when you're building a base. And plus, remember, you can use the ornithopter taxi service to go back to the first area or to the other villages. You can go to the Atreides or the Harkonnen village, which are basically shopping malls and the place for you to deposit your money. Plus, this area is pretty good because you have drum sand near us, and I can collect the silicone.
Plus, it's pretty close to the next locations I'll need to visit because I already tapped out all of the resources from these areas. That's it. The two areas last about 10 hours at best. If you're spending more time, that means you're wasting time and you need to go to the next areas for sure. Okay, now let's speak about all of the items that you should have in your inventory at all times. Now this is a bit of a discussion, also these schematics you have to research. Whenever you take them, remember to research them, don't bring them back to the base. Also remember to use quick store instead of manually storing everything. That's a huge help, so basically you can do all of that so fast with these tips that I mentioned. Okay, so what should you carry? Well, this is also an inventory slot, so this will not occupy an inventory slot from here. So you need a sword. I really mean it, a sword. Don't worry about the other stuff, just take a sword. An automatic rifle, the Carpo 38 is great for all ranges. The blood extractor, oh by the way, the blood extractor is Mark II, which means it has an extraction efficiency of 20%. So that means the first one has 10, this is 20%. It's so much better to upgrade your tools very early on. One stack for bandages, one for the cutter array. The construction tool sadly will always remain in my bar because I'm just so tired of always moving stuff in my base, expanding and so on. And also, this over here, number 7, is the one that I used to swap out. This is what I'll swap for the static compactor. This is what I'll swap for the torch. So this slot over here is the one that I mostly swap out. And then the vehicle backup tool I always use, and I always keep it over there. As for armor, I recommend you build a heavy jacket, the heavy armor, and then the rest will be the light one. So as you can see, this is the heavy jerkin, 100 armor plus all of the other cool stuff, and then there is only light armor. Holtzman shield, dispenser belt. Now some people will use the other one, but I just like to use this one for the first zones, because in the first zones you'll not be running a lot. You should be using your bike all the time, and also Mark II power cells, because yeah, this is what you always need. Now you'll never really run out of power, because this one doesn't use as much power as the other one. So yeah, this area basically encourages you to move always on your bike. I also have all of the money on me. Hey, this is a bit of a mistake. I think you should leave the money at home, but then again, when you go shopping, you'll probably forget to get them. I also have some of the unique containers. I have 2 of these with me all the time. So when I leave, I fill up one container at about half capacity and the other one will be empty. Why? Because I'm always harvesting the dew, and sometimes I'll get the perfect optimal harvesting time and they'll fill up both, and then when I come back to the base, I'll actually deposit the water over here. So yeah. And always leave the base topped up like this. It takes a bit of practice and you need a little bit of time to get used to, but that's how it's more or less working. Also keep a battery on me for, you know, for bad decisions. I mean, this will never really run out, but at the same time, do you want to risk it? It's just better to have one more battery, because sometimes you'll run into very long adventures, and the bandages, do you need as many bandages? No, but I'm not going to forget to take them ever again, because once you forget to take bandages, you regret it for the entire game. Now, over here we have the blood sacks. You might be thinking, do you need as many? Yes, you need as many, because you'll only have access to the small ones for a big chunk of the game. It's only 3000 milliliters or 3 liters. And then you can have the medium blood bags, which are 9000, which is much better, but they're kind of expensive to buy, and I don't know, you can... They're not really... They're very expensive to make, let's just say it like that. And then I bought some recipes for the ultra ones. Now, at some point, you should be having only ultra ones. Not ultra ones, I guess big ones, for 3000. So that's extra 10,000 capacity for each of these ones. But I recommend you don't take much more than this, because usually an adventure will fill up this many bags. I recommend you take more medium ones. You know, I think it's mostly because of their huge cost that I can never really seem to have enough of them. You'll use up a lot of micro sandwich fabric, which I'm not sure if it's very good to use so many. And for the special ones you can buy from the trader hub, unique containers, you will use up a lot of your resources, and I don't think you want to do that. So that's why I carry 6 of them. Always have 6 of them, maybe more or less capacity on each, but trust me, you'll be happy later. About 800-900 light darts, because you never want to run out of ammo. Plus, it gives you the option of never worrying about the need to loot, so that's why I do like that. Also welding wire, because I might break my bike, but that never happened, and the welding torch for obvious reasons as well. plus the static compactor as well, and this is all the stuff you need to carry on you at all times. Might be a little bit exaggerated, but you always want to be safe rather than sorry. And now let's go over the bike. Because I never found anything about the bike itself, so... I guess you should always fuel it or refuel it in the base. You can always look at the management of the vehicle. As you can see, it's 71. Now, I recommend you fuel it in the base and don't carry extra fuel with you, because I'm already carrying a lot of nonsense with me, so you can even make it lighter if you want. But usually at this point you should be okay. Now, the bike is mostly the same as the Mark 1, except for a few major changes. Now, as much as I would like to make it all Mark 2, it's kind of expensive in terms of iron ingots and some other stuff, so I just make the engine tier 2 because it gives you speed, it gives you more max speed. The engine is tier 2, and then I have the booster that is tier 2. The tracks are not really worth it. The other stuff can be more interesting, but it's not really worth it right now. And why did I upgrade? I don't think it shows you, but the booster. Why I have the booster, not the inventory? Well, let's be honest, you'll never use the inventory on the bike, because that means you need to you'll not be able to carry it in your tool, which is a big problem, because most of the time it's just easier to cross the mountains on foot than rather use the bike and go all over around the place. So to go from here to here, it's a straight line, but if I use the bike, I have to go from here like that. So some missions will also require you to enter some caves and do some other stuff. It's just better to store the bike over here. So yeah, I prefer to play like this. And I don't want to waste too much materials with the bike as well, so as you can see, the engine is Mark II and the booster is Mark II, and that's about it. And I only store it because I don't want to get mixed up with some other stuff, because I already showed you what you need to keep and what you need to focus on. And this is all the stuff I store on my character. Now let's speak a little bit about the base building aspect of the game. Sadly, you'll always need 2 power. By the way, make a minimal first base over there and run away with all of the resources I mentioned. And you'll not get away without making 2 generators. Sadly, the generators need a lot of fuel cells to be active. To fill up the generators with all of that. And let's speak about the blood. What is this even called? The blood purifiers. Now, you probably will want to build 3 or 4 or 5 of these ones, but you don't have enough power, so that's why I recommend you actually try as much as you can get the blood stuff that is tier 2. Let me show you. Because the other stuff will be... See, this is why I always carry the construction tool with me. I wish to tell you this in this inventory, in this menu as well, but I guess you have to look at the research. So the blood purifier has only an efficiency rate of 20%, while this one has an efficiency rate of 40%. So that means it extracts twice the amount of water from the blood. So you're actually losing a lot of water from the blood you put into the basic ones. Plus, this one has a much faster filtration rate, or a purification rate. It's 8 milliliters per second, and I think this is 5. So as you can imagine, you'll need to build a lot of the tier 2 stuff. So there's not much point in getting a lot more blood bags and trying to, you know, get more water out of that, because you'll just be stuck waiting for the power, waiting for the other stuff. And this is not my permanent base. My permanent base will be in a new area, because this is just not enough, because I only have iron here, but I want to switch to steel and some of the other stuff, which will be in the next area. So this is still a temporary base, and it's only permanent for about 5 or 10 hours until I finish this phase of the game. You also will need a chemical refinery, just because you want to make silicon blocks, which you'll probably use for some other stuff. You also will want the repair station. By the way, turn off the repair station. You can turn off stuff like this, disable it, because otherwise you'll not have enough power. And trust me, you don't want to make another one, because again, it's too much finicky and it's too much tedious stuff to do. Also make some water cisters in the back and make sure they're not at full capacity, or I guess they're at full capacity. What can we do? We're just too efficient with our water and we're not using any of it right now. But that means I have to throw down a few of these as well. So 25 copper bars. So imagine how many copper bars you need to make all of this stuff. I need to farm more copper.
By the way, this is a circuit, so it will add up over time as well. So the max capacity I have is 34,000 right now. Also, what you need over here is the fabricator. The fabricator always stays on, not much to say about this one. 2 ore refineries, because usually I like to have one for the copper and another one for the iron, just so they work at the same time. Same thing for my recycler. As you can see, the recycler will always be turned off. By the way, as a little fun thing, you can basically get all of the armors and weapons and recycle them over here. You will not get much back, but sometimes it's just better to recycle stuff because you get a little more out of everything, like that. Also have a spare bike, which is horrible because this was one that I found playing around. And the bikes over time will degrade as well, so yeah, if you repair it over and over, it will have much more less max HP and stuff like that. Now, as a bonus, I found the bike over here, so some of the bulwarks, if they have a garage, they can have bikes in them, which is great because that means you can get free bikes. So I recommend this location. This was the one that I found the bikes. So it's actually pretty important to check the locations themselves and see how you choose the best base location. The chest and the other stuff you already know. Now, I would also recommend you do something else, but this is all entirely up to you, but it's a smart move. Make the roofs over here, because this, for example, look at this. Make it all around the base and have an extra layer, because this will count as shade, and it will also count as sheltered. See? And you might need it for certain situations. Okay, so this was basically the map, the base, the character I have, and now let's speak about the skills. Now, one thing I actually should have done from the beginning of the game, by the way, the only possible choice for you in the beginning is sadly Bene Gesserit. Don't choose anything else because it's not worth it. The only thing that would be worth it is the Swordmaster, but you actually spend so little time fighting, to be honest. 99% of your time is dedicated to survival and exploration. 1% of your time is dedicated to combat. So choose Bene Gesserit because the Trooper, the Mentat, the Scientist, and the anyway, they'll be much easier to unlock. I guess the only the real options will be the Swordmaster or the Mentat. But the problem with the Swordsman is that he's very heal inclined and PvP inclined, and just a little bit harder to play in the beginning because he's very gear dependent. That's why I didn't choose him. And the Mentat can also be kind of interesting with all of the abilities and stuff like this, but you don't have problems with the combat. You can outgear your enemies. So always choose, in my opinion, the Bene Gesserit as a starting class just because of the voice and the sprint being so good. And then when you unlock the Trooper, get the Shiga Wire. So it's probably always going to be the Shiga Wire and the sprint, and I'll replace the voice with the Shiga Wire. And this one, probably it will have to be the blind sprint. This is basically Rikimaru teleport. Rikimaru from Dota. Actually, no, what am I thinking? This is not the one. Is that other one? I think it was another skill that lets you teleport behind enemies. Anyway, you can also use this to run away. Forgot what that other one was. Anyway, doesn't matter. Because you will mostly be running away from your enemies and doing some other stuff. At some point, it's not worth killing. If you have all of the blood bags filled up, don't worry about killing stuff. You'll not need it. Over here, only the Shiga Wire is important, but what most people don't tell you is that the most important class in the game is the Planetologist. Because look at this. Hatter Ray Yield. Power regeneration. More water from your Dew Reaper. And Reaper analysis, this is not so required, but I just took it because it's fun to have. Overcharge, maximum power. Action, compactor yield. And then over here you'll also need the Mountaineers because it's very interesting and very fun to use. And also over here, remember to take these skills because they will allow you to use less fuel and repair much better, much more efficiently. And these ones are for later. Now as for the Bene Gesserit stuff, why did I choose this stuff over here? Well, because most of this is passive stuff. Self-healing is very good healing effect. Your bandages will be much more useful like this. Trauma recovery as well, regeneration rate and limit. Vitality, more max health, which is a passive. Well, that's a technique, but I kind of like it because we need it for some other stuff for later. This is also passive, but I don't think we have problems with poison so far. It will probably be for later. And the voice saying the ignore, you can make your voice actually kind of be like a big disable on the enemy characters. This is a technique. I don't think I'll need that. I also took the blade damage. Remember, there's long blade damage. I think that's sword damage, and this is dagger damage. This is the one I need. The one I was referring to, because it's very good, even though I didn't use it so far. I kind of remember it from the beta. So when you're fighting, yeah, that will be the one. And then, like I said, I'll replace this with this. So this will be my fighting stuff. You may be wondering, why am I using the sprint in combat? Well, because sometimes I'll just run away. I'm not going to fight till the death. I'm going to run away whenever I get the chance. Now, the swordsman stuff is exactly what you think it is. It's mostly instant kills and very, very cool stuff, but you'll not enjoy fighting in melee. It's kind of annoying and it's kind of hard to do. So let's speak a little bit about the crafting over here. So did you see when I was activating those recipes? It means I have one crafting of those things. They show up over here. The unique item is just an improved version of that item. Usually they have a little bit more stats, but they don't make such a big improvement in my opinion. That's why I don't really use them. For example, the Way of the Wanderer can be better, but I just recommend you stick to the unique survival tools like the Canteen tier toolkit. Is 1750 water. That's a Mark II. The Mark I has 1500. So every little bit of this stuff helps because it lowers the amount of stuff you have to do for later. Or the Reaper. Yeah, the Reaper Mark II. Look at this. The water yield will be so much better with the Mark II. So sadly, this is more of a survival game than a combat game. And later on, you'll have access to some other stuff, but it's a bit of a shame that so much of the game is mostly reliant on the fact that you need so many better tools in order to lessen the grind. You also have one of these things over here, and that's kind of like it, because later on, if you want to switch to better stuff that you can fabricate, you'll have to switch to the weapons fabricator, the garment fabricator, the survivor fabricator, vehicle fabricator, and that will require you to get steel. And steel requires carbide to be made. Water, carbon, and iron ingots. So that means you'll need a lot of iron before you can even start to make steel, plus the carbon ore, which is just coal, I guess. That's what the problem. That's what they're probably trying to tell us. At this point, I finished the first area and the second area of the game. I'm not going to farm over here because there's no point. You probably saw that you need water to make the iron bars as well. So I'll have to get a lot of iron from this area, and then I'll have to switch over here and get a lot of, hopefully, carbon ore, and also start to do some of those quests. Also, in case you're wondering how the boost looks like, well, the boost, let me show you. Never go for the inventory. You can also use the boost for a quick maneuver, because that will allow you to do this faster. I wish I would have used this from the beginning, because in the beginning I used the inventory option and that's annoying. Plus, you don't have to worry about parking anymore, because you just arrive somewhere and take this out and yeah, that's it. It's parked. You don't have to worry about putting it in garage, you don't have to worry about much else, and that's kind of like my tips and tricks for the first part of the game. And after this part you can probably play solo. Don't worry, you'll be able to do a lot of stuff solo. Just remember that you can also fly to the Harkonnen or Atroide city, and I haven't started to do their quest, but I'll start pretty soon, which means that you'll have access to rifles and some other stuff. I'm not sure if they sell you the weapons you have already researched and built, But I distinctly remember seeing a standard carp of 38 over there for 7,000 scripts or whatever this is. Solari. For about 7,500 Solari. So definitely money is very, very useful. By the way, this is the money I have in the bank plus the money I have on myself. So I put 20,000 in the bank and 6,000 on me. Don't lose all of your money, because the first time the worm ate me, I think I had 22,000 Solari on me. So that was a big waste. So yeah, from now on you can play and do whatever you like. Just make sure you don't spend too much time in the starting area, and try not to listen to influencers that give you bad tips, because most of the influencers that give tips or make guides are just people who are with a guild, and someone else is doing all of the work and they're just showing you the results. I'm just showing you what I did alone over here. Oh, that's the Shiga wire key, that's why I pressed it. Nice lookout over here. Oh, I didn't mention this, but I can also go through all of those caves and get all of those intels and other stuff very, very easily. Yeah, so usually when I log in, I do a resource run, I collect some blood, and then I do a quest or do something else. But now, I just need to go to the next area of the game. Bye bye.